All right. Hello. Hello out there. I think it's
Hello.
Friday and I think it's working so far. Knock on
So far,
on wood.
knocks on wood.
There we go. Hello to Mr. Rez, Calamari, and Stuart. So far, good to see you all here. But yeah, we're gonna talk some Mandalorian. And the only thing I've been doing at all on this channel is these streams with you.
Oh my goodness. If anyone has recently subscribed during this time, my face is not always around. You can stay. So it'll be
Well,
good.
I mean, your face could be around as much as you want your face around, as far as I'm concerned. So eventually we'll have like more 3 boxed streams once the world returns to normal. Hello, Caleb. Welcome.
Yes.
But we're here to talk more about the Mandalorian Gallery show. Disney Gallery, Mandalorian. It has so many titles. Cal,
Disney
this is my,
Gallery, The Mandalorian.
Cal says this is his first time watching
I
the channel. Yeah, first time today, maybe. Cal.
And I don't remember her name,
Mhm.
so I'm
Okay.
sorry, but your source was correct because we
Oh,
did we
and
did watch all
Vesuvi.
about
Yes.
technology.
And Vesuvi is often correct. I've learned never to doubt her.
We
Oh,
talked a bunch of technology that I did not completely understand, but was
I
fascinated and enthralled by all the same.
I kind of got it. Like I sort of like, and then they were talking about like King Kong. And actually, it was really funny because they were talking about the developing technologies, and I
Mm-hmm.
even though I didn't fully get all of it, I love the idea that it was building from this to that to that to that. Like it started on Jungle Book, and then they were using it on Lion King. But it was really funny because they're describing the VR world, and I know that James Cameron did something like that for Avatar, but that was Weta and not ILM. And I just thought that was really funny that that
Mm-hmm.
low key did not get mentioned that James Cameron kind of did this, but that's okay.
My other favorite thing about James Cameron and Avatar is
Mm.
that everyone knows it was super successful and it broke a lot of boundaries. And I've seen it at least twice, but I can't tell you a single thing about that. I can't tell you a single thing about that movie.
I
Except there are blue people,
there are
and
blue
there's going to
people.
be 2 more.
There's apparently going to be 2 more. I always tell people that Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar, would be a great movie if it was an hour
Mm-hmm.
shorter. But like, it did not have enough story to justify its runtime. But that's yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I feel that
hmm
because I was actually not, I mean, not to get off track so early
We
in the
we
stream,
always do.
but I've been actually thinking a lot about the length of time I'll sit through movies now. Because the last summer we had Endgame, and I
hmm
was like, at first I was, to be fair, I probably went to go see it too many times in theaters. It's like the first, how many times I see it? Probably like 7, maybe. So like the first 4 times, I was like, 3 hours. This is great. I love everything. And then like the last 3 times, I was like falling asleep, and my body was waking me up during my favorite scenes, and I was like, woo. But then I'm also a really big fan of the It movies, and It Chapter 2 is also like
3
3 hours
hours.
long, but I can sit through that and it's absolutely fine. And so lately I've just been like, what am I willing to accept from movies? But now I don't have movies in theaters anymore.
Yeah, that was my issue because like the 2 times I went to see Game, I basically dehydrated myself for hours beforehand because like it just I wasn't gonna make it. Like I'm very
Mm-hmm.
ethically against 3 hour movies, and then
Mm-hmm.
everyone's like, well, in the old days, all the movies that were important were 5 hours, and I'm like, in the old days, they all had intermissions, and if Endgame had an intermission, I would have been a lot less cranky about a 3 hour runtime if it gave me time to pee in the middle, but it didn't. So why was it 3 hours?
I have a rule with people that if you go to the movies with me,
Yep.
at least the first time, so
hmm
it can be my first time seeing it, or I've seen it before and it's your first time seeing it,
Yep.
you can't leave the first time.
Right.
Like you have to sit the whole thing because I'm not explaining anything
Yep.
and I don't want you to ask.
Yep.
And you can't, like, especially because I go to the movies a lot, it's like, Gina, when can I go to the bathroom? And I'm like, never. But after that, if we go revisit it, fall asleep, go get more snacks. I don't care. But the first time, you got to watch the whole thing through or don't go to the movies.
I think that's a fair rule. It really is. Poor Caleb is discussing how he spent the last 2 days as a moderator on a DC Comics subreddit. I can't. That was not English. Subreddit. Um, and
So, are we
that's.
talking like comics, or is this because we're getting a Snyder cut?
I'm.
She asked
It's
questioningly.
probably related to this legendary Snyder cut, and I do not envy Caleb's position of having
No,
to moderate people discussing a Snyder cut. I have no opinion on
I'm
it
so
because I don't
sorry.
watch DC movies, other than people are annoying. But like, I have no like actual ethical stake in the game because I have not seen Joss Whedon's Justice League to want a Zack Snyder cut. Um,
I've seen his Justice League. I saw it like 3 times in theaters because
Fair.
I'm a really big Superman fan. And I really like Henry Cavill as
I have
Superman, so I went to go see
never
it.
disagreed with you more strongly than I have in this. Superman is like the reason why I won't get into DC stories.
Oh my gosh, he's like my number one favorite superhero. Oh no!
We found it. We
Okay,
found the thing. Trust, no big deal. We'll
forget
get
the
through it.
volume. Forget the volume. Forget Tross. Forget John Favreau. Superman. Oh my gosh. Wait, but okay, so I don't have very many, like a lot of the things people like super like about Superman, I kind of actually don't care about. So
That's fair.
can I so is there like a I don't want you to be on your soapbox if you don't want to be, but I'm
But
very curious
well,
now.
I don't find like I find the kind of like all or nothing bit of it not very compelling. Like he's either super powerful or he's dying because of a rock, and I don't find that interesting. He's like, I can go back in time by flying or melt you with my Cyclops eyes. But if you put me by the wrong rock, it's all over. And I can't do it. I it's I feel like
I love everything. That's a really good reason not to care for him. I actually really like that. That's valid.
I mean, it's just like and what I usually get told is if I had actually watched Smallville back in the day, I'd probably like him because that was like one
Mm-hmm.
part of young person's experience that I never did was I never watched Smallville. And so I just kind of specifically don't because then I have a good excuse to not like Superman. But
I
yeah,
don't remember a lot of Smallville, but I did watch it as a kid because my dad watched it,
that's fair.
and he is probably the reason why I liked Superman in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Then I watched all the films, and I was like, well, he's the best person to ever walk the earth in comic book things.
That's
So
fair. That's fair. But anyway, the volume.
the volume. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't know it was called that till
I
this
didn't either.
episode,
I didn't
and
either.
so when they first okay, so Woo, she's on track, but also about to hop off the track because they were like the volume, and I was like, "What do you mean the volume?" And I went to like go reach for my thing to like turn it over, turn it down, and I was like, "Gina, no, it's been a long day," and I watched it at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, "That's not what we're talking about."
um, that was great. Um, real quick in the chat, JPD, who's another longtime friend of the channel, says Captain America is just Superman and his rock is the word Bucky. That's kind of funny, actually. I appreciate that.
It is.
As a person that has, he's saying that probably because he knows I have Captain America right there. But that's fair. And then Caleb wants to point out that the rock is a radioactive piece of his home planet, and it's symbolic for the fact that his past will always haunt him. I mean, that's fair. I can't argue with the metaphor. I didn't really think of it that way, and that's valid. But I also still can't do it.
I mean, that's okay. Just missing out on some good movies.
It's a good thing Django isn't here because that's one thing he and I have in common is neither of us like Superman, but he loves Batman. So he actually likes Batman versus Superman just because he enjoys watching Batman beat up Superman.
I like certain iterations of Batman, but like as a like whole in general, the character is not the greatest. But like I watch the Dark Knight trilogy like all the time.
See,
So
it's funny. The iterations of Batman I like are Adam West and the Lego Batman. Those are both
oh my
really
goodness, wait.
great Batman.
I have actually a really funny video to send you on
Okay.
Twitter.
Yes. So 14 minutes into the stream,
the volume.
Okay, so we were talking before the stream how before we even get into the technology, this was like the episode where like so much about the Mandalorian made sense. Right, because like for the longest time, I thought they just picked Jon Favreau because he was a trendy like director producer guy. He was from Marvel, like he had an in because he did a voice on the on the Clone Wars. And then this, I'm like, no, this is why they picked Jon Favreau because he had this technology that he was developing through these different movies, and then they must have known that they wanted to do something because they were gonna have to find a way to do Star Wars effects on a TV budget, even a grandiose TV budget. And so, like, that made sense. And then bringing in Dave Filoni, which I was just like, oh, they just want to give Dave, like, his shot at live action. And he's like, well, no, but because they were doing all of this, like, there was an animation connection. And, like, I thought that was really cool, even though that wasn't the point of the episode. To go, oh, that's why they're in charge.
I didn't fully put it together either until this episode, even as someone who, like, all the projects Jon Favreau listed, like Zathura, Iron Man, Jungle Book, Lion King. In fact, Jungle Book's like one of my favorite movies ever. I didn't know he directed
really
it.
Underrated. It's really, really good.
Especially as someone who I didn't have any connections to the animated version.
Yeah.
I'd never seen the animated version, never seen or never read the book. So it's wild that it's one of my favorite movies because it just on its own merit. And so even knowing that he did all those things, I was still like, oh, he did do all those things. That does make complete sense. Also, in an age where I feel like a lot of people in general question, do they know what they're doing? This is an episode that, yeah, they do.
Hello, Roberto. Welcome. Well, it's funny. So, like, you and I haven't really talked about this on stream. I had at least one comment on the stream for last episode, and I've talked to some of my friends about it. Favreau has this habit of, like, he just has a comment. Like, anytime anyone has someone to say, I think I described it to you last week off stream, as, like, somebody would be like, yeah, so, you know, themes and mythology and stuff. And Favreau's like, have you tried the tuna? Like, it's how it feels half the time. And it's like, calm down, John. Like, let the other people... But, like, this episode, he would interject, but it was like, oh, but no, he has something to say. Because, like, this is about the reason why he was hired. This time his interjections make sense.
There was this one moment, I don't remember who it was, but someone was like, I'll explain it, and then John will come in and explain it better. And I was like, will he? But then I was like, well, actually, yeah, he probably will.
He actually did.
And I was like, oh, yeah, you did.
Hello, the shadow. Welcome. But yeah, that was like, oh, yeah, okay. Like, this time I don't actually mind it when he has something to say, because it actually feels relevant and like it's adding. Not. I'm just really excited to be here.
So yeah, I was really happy that he was sitting there at the table in that moment. Not that I don't mind anything else he says,
right?
But you're right; it's super appropriate.
I feel like they need like the turn-taking stick, like, you know, like the campfire stick, where it's like, okay, I have it, so I talk.
Yep, can't talk unless you have the stick.
I like. The other thing that I felt kind of made sense after watching this too is I remember during production of the show, they would be like, oh, so and so is on the set, and it seemed really confusing because, like, why are the Russos there, and why, I think Kevin Smith was one of them, and everybody was speculating, and it turns out they weren't there necessarily because they were part of the show. They were there because of this swanky new kind of set that they had, and they just wanted to check it out. And I was like, oh, it's another thing that seems to make sense.
Which I too would be on the set if someone had invited me and or I had known that the volume was there.
For sure. Caleb says, I love the fact that we actually get to see Kathleen Kennedy strut her producer muscles. She's articulate about her part in the show, and she shows her knowledge of the tech and the lore. Yeah, that she should get to talk more. Like, I don't mind what anyone else says, but like, this episode is 26 minutes, so you could have added another 10 minutes of just Kathy
Mm-hmm.
and not had to take away from anyone else.
Yeah. The other thing I really like about this in general is because you think most people leave during the credits or things like that, so we don't get to know a lot in general about the people behind the scenes.
Right.
And so the fact that like they put their names up there and then they put their job title, and I'm just like, okay, I don't really know what that is. But then they go off onto this speech that explains to me what it is, and maybe I don't exactly get it because I'm not like versed in that world. But at least so someone could say, "Oh, you're a producer," and I could take that to mean 1,000 different things because I don't know what a producer does. Then to hear her so articulately say all these things that she's done and they've done, I'm just like, I'm only 50% to know what a producer is, but at least I'm 50% to knowing what a producer is.
It's, that much further than you would have been. Oh, well, and I love that they're not afraid to show like that far. Like we were talking about last week, we actually got to talk to, I don't even know if stunt double is a word that does enough justice for the body doubles for the Mandalorian. But to actually meet them instead of like really making it all about just Pedro, and then here to we actually get to hear what some of the DP is talking about, and I don't know. I think it's cool that they're so fine with just letting everyone have a say. I mean, like, yeah, the episode's called The Technology, but it's not often that visual effects guys actually get to have that much front and center explaining how things go.
Exactly. So the other thing I really liked was at the very beginning, one of the things John was saying was, you can't just fix everything in post. And I think that's an idea even I had, especially because technology seems so cool and like it does so much that I can't even imagine, that I could see myself. In fact, I probably have just been like, and yeah, they just fixed that later and they just added that and took away that, blah, 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 which they could most definitely do.
Right.
But it's nice to know that it's like complicated, but not complicated.
No, I agree. And I think visual effects artists, and they really are artists, they don't get enough credit, where you people act like you make the thing in the computer and then it just goes and there's no other really added thought. But then he was talking about what happened on the Jungle Book, where they would block out it was Jungle, where they would block out the shot and then realize, well, the camera's better here, and then you have to move everything else just to get the lighting to work. And just how hard and complicated that can be. And it was really cool watching the screens in the volume, because sometimes, depending on where they were, the screens looked weird to get that picture right in the frame. I don't know, have you ever seen the street art, like pictures of street art where it's like you look at it from one side and it looks jumbled, and then you look at it from the other way and it's like this crazy 3D effect? And like, that's basically what the volume screens are doing, is if you're standing in the correct spot, the vectors of all the art looks correct. But then if you're standing over here, it look really wacky. But it was a really cool concept. I knew the screens were rear projection, or I don't know, I guess it's not rear projection, it's LED screens. Like, I knew it was that, but I didn't realize how extensive it really was, and then it had the ability to shift. Like, I thought it was just a still image they put up. I didn't realize it was this digital world.
I didn't either. And the fact that they were saying you kind of at some points didn't know what was like the set and what was the screen and stuff, and it felt just so real. And I was like, oh, that I did not realize it was that intense or maybe expansive. And so suddenly, like, because before I even knew the name, I knew that they had these screens. I too just thought it was like, I was like, that's cool, but why are we hyping this up? And then this episode was like, well, Gina, this is exactly why we're hyping this up.
I loved that this is a realization of something George was trying to do. Like, this idea of like, oh, he'd been trying to do it for years and he wasn't able to really make it work. And I feel like Lucas got so much bad press over what happened with the prequels,
Mhm.
and like everything in the prequels was just green screen. I mean, a lot of it was, but like George has always been so far ahead of the technology, and to the extent that some
Mhm.
stuff in the prequels might have fallen flat, I think it's less like people want to attribute that to him not caring, but it's not. It's that the technology was not at George's level yet. like
Yeah.
like it was because he was trying to do things that were impossible, and maybe 1999 CGI doesn't look as great as it could anymore. But if it
Mhm.
wasn't for that 1999 CGI, Jar Jar does not get enough credit for being one of the first CG realized characters at all. Love
Yeah.
love the guy or hate the guy, like that character was an achievement in cinema, and Lucas has always been kind of pushing the envelope, and so it's cool to see this. It almost belonged in the legacy episode of like seeing this realized thing that
Mhm.
George would have been into.
When Jon Favreau wanted to do the round robin of everything that had happened, that's where you mentioned the green screen and set extensions.
Oh man, and
um,
maybe they did, and they edited it out because of this one.
they were like, put that in the other one. Immediately afterwards, I was like, so who's gonna vote to rename it from the volume to George's Garage? Because I like
Right?
that immensely better. It
Because what
makes
does
me
the
want to
volume
cry.
even mean?
I was wondering. The other thing that I really appreciated was them showing us the behind the scenes of the Jungle Book with the
Yep.
green screen.
Yep.
Because I think, especially with the fact that I think most people think of Marvel movies, although a bunch of movies actually use green screens and
Yep.
things. Um, Actually seeing the amount of work and the imagination that has to happen with the actors in order for me to actually believe that they're wherever they are or
Mm-hmm.
doing wherever they are. And I think it's a credit that I've never truly like given or thought about with actors that I
Yeah.
think I will now. But also just the fact that Carl Weathers was talking about like, oh, if you're with four different people in the boat, they can visualize four different things.
Yeah, I
And
never
now
thought
we
of it
all
that
have
way.
the same
Yeah.
idea because it feels like we're legit there.
Yeah.
Never thought of it that way.
Once again, Carl Weathers is just rocking my world like he does every week.
And so like not to knock on green screens because they're
Right.
still cool and we're still going to use them and they've still
Yeah.
done amazing things, but I just never ever. I think of one example. I think on Brie Larson's first day or
Mm-hmm.
one of her first days as Captain Marvel, it was the end scene to Infinity War, something like that.
Yeah.
And she didn't know which Avengers were there. She was just talking to like some bubbles where they were supposed to be. And she still gave a great performance because
Yeah.
when I watched the movie, I thought they were there, but also like she wasn't really talking to anyone. And so now I'm thinking about all of it.
I remember watching. I don't think this was all in one doc. I think this is just like a compilation of interviews I'd seen. But like I remember watching interviews with prequel actors, and so many of them were like, "We're in this room with all these green screens or all these blue screens. We're in this room with all the." And then it got to Samuel L. Jackson, and Samuel L. Jackson was like, "When I was a kid, I would just pretend stuff all the time, and you just do that. Like I don't get what everyone's problem is." And I was like, "I love you, Sam Jackson."
Oh my gosh, she's the best.
So it's like all these other actors were like, there are all these green screens, and I had to like imagine what all these weird. And Sam Jackson's like, did you do that when you were 5? He would be the one that had no
One thing
problem with
that
it.
it's true. I'm curious if you know if there is a difference
Okay.
because they kept saying blue screen and green screen, and I'm like, are these the same things, just different colors,
Yeah.
or are they not the same thing?
Actually, so JP in the chat might know a little bit better than I do. But I think it's
Mm-hmm.
just different colors specifically because if you key out green, no one can wear green.
Mm-hmm.
So like you would use blue if you have green, and you would use green if you have blue. But I don't know. There might be a color quality that's just better in using one or the other. But I think it's largely because you need to use something that's not a human skin tone. So like if you used like red or something, that would key out part of people's skin. So like blue and green tones, except for people's eyes, and it's easy to mask around people's eyes and not take those parts out. Like you can, I think it's just to have options depending on what colors you're using.
Makes a lot of sense.
And then Caleb says, I also respect the hustle of Epic Games to get the Unreal Engine. I thought that was funny. So Epic Games is the company that makes Fortnite, the thing that the kids were all playing last year. I don't know if the kids are still playing it, but it's really funny to me because it was another one of those things that makes sense, because before Rise of Skywalker, famously, the message that Palpatine sends out to the galaxy was actually in Fortnite. If you played Fortnite, there was an event and you could hear Palpatine's message, and then you go see the Rise of Skywalker and it's like, the dead speak, Palpatine has released a message. And I was just like, why Fortnite? And like, why does Fortnite get all these Star Wars skins? And then here it is, it's like, well, Epic Games is using their gaming engine for making The Mandalorian.
Oh. I've been wondering why things keep premiering on Fortnite. Like, on a whole nother level or topic, like yesterday we got the trailer for the Christopher Nolan's Tenet movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, why is this on Fortnite? Well, he probably just used some kind of technology that made it like, oh yeah, we could do this. Okay, everything's making sense now, because I've been wondering why people keep using Fortnite to do things.
It was the episode where things made sense. And not even the things they were trying to make sense. I mean, those things made sense too. But like other things also made sense. This was
everything comes together.
This was like the character growth episode of a TV series. Like, this is like halfway through the series. We've been having all these big plot points, and then we took a second to really spend some time and like get to know the characters. And we're like, oh, if this was a narrative show, that's what would have happened. I think. Oh, we're back. I think we're back.
Oh yeah, we're back.
There we go. Okay. But
one thing. Oh, go ahead.
No. If you have an actual point, go for it. I was gonna BS a point.
Well, one thing I thought was so interesting was when Gina Carano was like, she gets motion sick. And I don't really get motion.
I do. I felt so happy that like someone that BA also gets motion sick. I was like, I feel bad for you, but yes.
So one of my biggest, because just what did they say? They were like, it's 70 foot like in like diameter, and there's like so many LED screens, and I have some Star Wars virtual reality game, and I can only play it for like 10 minutes. Otherwise my head starts to hurt.
Yeah.
And it's like not even like super high quality graphics or anything. And so now, especially like the idea of motion sickness, like the walls moving on the ceiling, I'm just like, did you guys ever have to take breaks because you just had a really bad headache or you were disoriented, or what is it like? I don't know if I could be in that room for a long period of time.
Yeah, well, if it's LED screens, is it like staring at a computer screen, only you're completely surrounded by the computer screen?
Because that would hurt me.
Yeah, that would be brutal.
I wonder.
So
now I want someone to ask that question.
I was just really happy that somebody who can lift the limp body of the Mandalorian from the ground to be that strong also gets motion sickness. And I'm like, there is hope for me. I mean, I'll never be able to lift a grown man, but there's hope for me.
Wait, so can you do roller coasters and dark rides?
I don't. I went to, for those of you who are familiar with Cedar Point, it's the only good thing in Ohio. And I'm from Michigan, so there's only one good thing in Ohio, and it's Cedar Point. Otherwise, why would we even keep it? And anyway, and then we lost all the Ohio subscribers. But I went there once for a field trip, and I went on like some smaller coasters, and they were all right. And then I went on a suspended coaster. I think it's like the Iron Dragon. Anyway, it's the suspended coaster right near the front of the park, if you're familiar with it. And I couldn't do it. Like, I was on it, and I thought I was going to die. And it wasn't even that long or that fast, but it was the swinging out motion. It was horrible. And but like, I still will get motion sick if I'm in the back seat of a car. Like, it's like, if I am not, I mean, if I'm driving, I'm in the front seat, but like, if I'm not driving somewhere, I always ask if I can ride shotgun, because I will get sick if I don't ride in the front passenger seat. And like all these people, people are always like, yeah, we were on a car ride and I was a passenger, so I was reading. I'm like, no, I don't read in the car. That's a dangerous game. But yeah, no.
I did not know motion sickness like it comprised of like that like severity. So
yeah. Oh no,
still learning something new.
I think I've told I don't know if I've told the story when I told the story last, but Phantom Menace. I was 8 years old, and we had like middle row, like dead center seats, and we got to the pod race, and I got sick from the pod race, and my mother had to take me to the bathroom, and I spent a good portion of the rest of the movie puking in the movie theater bathroom. And then I got to come in to watch the end of the movie, but my parents were afraid the space battle was going to make me sick, so I had this memory of standing in the aisleway, and anytime it cut to space, my dad would grab the back of my shirt and like rip me away from the screen and wouldn't let me watch the space battle. But then I could come back out for the lightsaber fight and the field fight. So anyway, whenever people complain about the prequels, I always go, well, the Phantom Menace literally made me vomit.
It's like so bad but so funny at the exact same time. So wait, can you watch the Phantom Menace now?
Yes, and I can even I'll do IMAX 3D movies, and I find a lot of kids get motion sickness and it goes away. Mine is less severe, so like if I'm in the car, I won't necessarily get sick, but I will feel completely miserable, and it'll take me like an hour or two to get my equilibrium back. But it's less embarrassing than like going somewhere with friends and then having to pull over because you have to puke, which I did have to do as a child.
Oh. Everything you'll come for this episode about the volume, just as motion sickness.
My opinions on
see movies and comics.
I feel like anybody who's been coming to these on the regular understands that it's really just you and me chatting, and sometimes we remember The Mandalorian.
Well, to be fair, this is true. Also, to be fair, I mean, I still don't know half of the stuff they talked about and it meant. I was odd. I don't know what it meant. I played the Wii, and I played a Game Boy Advance PSP, or whatever it was called, and played Crash and Mario Kart. That's all my video game experience. And then the computer games, like on Disney Channel and stuff. That's all I did.
That's fair. That's understandable. No, that part I did think was cool, because like if you watched anybody stream, like Fallen Order would be something similar, where you would look around and it would just like pick which part of the map it's rendering, because like basically the computer doesn't necessarily process showing you any part of the game you're not looking at. So if you move the camera around, it's processing the part that you weren't already looking at.
Okay, suddenly that makes sense, and that's really cool.
Yeah. So it's basically.
Oh wait.
Yep.
Everyone's watching me have a real-time freak out because that's cool.
I'm glad I could explain it. Favreau should have me at the table to be like,
honestly,
ask him about the tuna anytime he talks.
Okay, so they said this is the first production to ever use real-time rendering, and that's what you were just talking about.
Yep.
So, whoa.
Right, because like then if you were thinking like what we were talking about, what we thought it was those static images, but the static images would only work from one angle, where these images were connected to the camera, so as the camera moved, it would automatically create the proper angle to capture real space, just like your VR set. Because like it's not showing you. I mean, even something as simple as some of the games you're talking about did that to a much lesser extent because it wasn't using photoreal graphics. But I mean, that's why you have, when you play a video game and there's levels and you have like loading time and you would sit there and wait for the next level to load, it's because whatever machine you're playing on can only process so much at a time. So it's unloading one level and loading another level, and that's...
I had no idea! I had no idea! Oh my gosh! I didn't know! Okay, well, everyone's seen my super shocked face. That's wild. That's dope. I had no idea. I want to go play a video game now. Oh my gosh.
It's
That's
pretty cool.
cool.
So that's like
Wait, okay.
good.
So yeah, go ahead. Keep no,
That's when they
explain
talk
everything. Keep
about
going.
like, and I'm doing it really. Somebody somewhere out there right now, there's a tech guy and his skin is getting a rash because I'm not explaining it like super technically. But like,
It's Jon
uh,
Favreau.
Jon Favreau somewhere he's like, someone doesn't understand about the tuna. Um, anyway, um, I'm gonna just make that a meme, like an angry Jon Favreau going, but what about the tuna? And like, I'm just gonna tweet that, and then no one but the people here will get it. Hello, silly putty. I'm glad to know that I'm not doing a terrible job. When they talk about something's processing power, that's like how fast can it make these images. So that's why sometimes if you play a video game on an older computer, you have to put graphics on low because the lower resolution graphics don't take as much juice to process in, or something that's going to have like more of that animated cartoony look doesn't take as much as something that's
Mm-hmm.
photoreal because there's not as many layers of colors and lighting and that sort of thing. So like if you're
Mm-hmm.
playing Stardew Valley, which is pixel art, versus Jedi Fallen Order, like those are two completely different beasts, as the computer is like
Mm-hmm.
generating the space around you.
So one of the things Kathleen Kennedy was saying was, so because of how they were doing things, they
Mm-hmm.
could immediately go and cut things,
Yep.
and then if they had to do pickup shots, they could just go back. And it's because they're doing everything with that
There.
real time rendering
Yes.
that they have the ability to do that.
Versus like a key wall where they would film it and then send it to visual effects artists who would then
Mm-hmm.
design it around what's there. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
they would take what was filmed and then go, okay, well, this is the angle, this is what the space looks like. So then we'll put the pieces in the background. This is creating those pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and like that's why it's such a big deal with the like being able to move the camera around and stuff. Because the other thing that Favreau kept talking about is the lighting. Lighting is the hardest part to fix in post, and so
Yeah.
that's why they were using a video game engine instead of just like Google Earth, you know, where those images exist, because then you can actually
Mm-hmm.
interact with it. So they could have the forest, like we saw the one part from the 4th episode with the forest, and you have trees and you have
Mm-hmm.
light going through the trees. So the camera can track with the trees and create the lighting over their faces. And that's part of what game engines do. Because like if you play video games, like I keep going back to Fallen Order because that's the fanciest one I've played recently. But like if I force push somebody, if I force push them
Mm-hmm.
in the force hits square in the chest, they're gonna go one way. And if it hits them in the shoulder, they're gonna move another way. And that's what the Unreal Engine does, is it simulates physics and simulates motion. So like the game engine is saying, oh, the camera moved like this instead of like this, and it's showing how the light's going to interact, and it can do that processing power.
This is shameless plug time. Go back and watch Jess's videos where she did Jedi Fallen Order. They were fun. Now I get them. At
I
least
had
how they
fun
work.
streaming those. I had fun streaming those quite a bit. I was recently showing a friend of mine because I just watched a friend of mine, Wolfman Dan, finish streaming the game on Twitch the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and I showed him a part on stream where I reacted to the Order 66 sequence, and like most people got really sad and depressed, and I was just angry. Like I was just screaming because like you have like you're facing the mirror scene and your master's there, and like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like normal people get to that part and they're like, oh, this is sad and meaningful, and I was like, you jerk, and I was just like as mad as anyway, it's a good time.
Oh my god.
I was like,
Um
I show people that clip all the time because I literally just throw a temper tantrum on stream over this character.
That's amazing. And I feel like it is in line with you as a person and your channel. One thing I didn't realize, because honestly everything is real to me. Like when I went to Disney World and I met Aladdin and I
Mm-hmm.
took photos, people were like, "Oh yeah, Gina, you met a character actor." And I'm like, "What are you talking?" To this day, I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I met Aladdin. What? So everything's real to me.
That's fair.
So it
Okay.
was really nice seeing like the moments when they talk about like, oh, we only built like half a ship, like there's half of a razor crest and then
Yep.
the rest of it's on the wall. And I was like, what do you mean the rest of it's on the wall? And so as someone who likes practical sets,
Mm-hmm.
a viewer, a
Yep.
consumer who likes practical sets, but also as someone who likes like CGI and things,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, look at that best of both worlds. That's dope.
Yeah.
And so I bet you somewhere John Favreau is really mad that all I do is call all of their achievements dope, and I don't have any better words to describe it. But that's
He's getting that rush. You get this arm and I get this arm, and he's just sitting there like.
but yeah, it's dope.
Nah, he'd probably be happy to know people are getting to know this tech. I thought it was cool that he was like, none of the technology was really. He used a specific word, and I can't remember what the word meant, but I think it meant like it's not like this process is patent protected or anything, because it's literally you're using a video game engine that exists and TVs,
Mhm.
and so I feel like now we could start seeing this, and I feel like obviously this process would be expensive now,
Yeah.
but once it gets like used more, I think it's really exciting to see, like, anytime you can get photoreal like cinema quality effects in the hands of people with smaller budgets, that just opens up the kinds of stories that can be told, and the kinds of story, like, suddenly it's a more equal playing field for people trying to get in the game, because I mean,
Mhm.
$1 million is $1 million, but it's easier to have $1 million than $100 million. So, you know, if any kind of democratization of the price that you can get for something like this just means it's going to be that much better. And then with so many streaming
Mhm.
platforms, so many more ideas can find homes, and they can find niche homes, as opposed to trying to
Mhm.
appeal to like network audiences. So, like, just as somebody who likes storytelling, likes television as a medium, not necessarily as in we have to watch it on our TVs, but like episodic storytelling. I don't know.
Yeah.
I get excited about stuff like this because it's like more people will get to be able to do things when you have this kind of
Yeah.
technology.
One of the things that I think it's been happening for years, but I
Mm-hmm.
noticed it last year
Mm-hmm.
is that I think a lot more people are starting to become more fascinated with television than movies.
Yep.
I around this time last year there was a lot of not debates, but like
Mm-hmm.
genuinely like questions of which one are you looking forward to more, The Mandalorian or The Rise of Skywalker,
Yep.
not necessarily from like a story perspective, but like the fact that we get this episodic show and how you
Mm-hmm.
can do so many more things with 8, hour long episodes versus one like 2-hour movie or things like
Right.
that. Or I think about how a few days ago we came up on the 1 year anniversary of the series finale of Game of Thrones,
Right.
and how, say what you want about that ending.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that whole season was just like so like long episodes
Mm-hmm.
that felt like movies, things like that.
Yeah.
And so I think as a society, especially now at a time with things like COVID where we're not going to the movies,
Right.
um, we're thinking a lot more about storytelling in that episodic form and what that can mean.
Mm-hmm.
And with this type of technology that's not necessarily patented and that other people can maybe take their hand at, I mean, it's just a good time to like television, especially
Yeah.
if we do have the chance to get more.
Yep.
Okay, not everyone likes, but I like this. This is about to be really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a really good time to be a TV fan.
For sure. Well, and what you're describing, I think, is interesting too, because you'll see people complain like, "Oh, there's more superhero movies coming out. Everything's Marvel or DC or whatever." But like a lot of that is actually TV's fault, because what's happening is now what's going to theaters is big spectacle event movies. Because of streaming
Mm-hmm.
platforms, more indie films are getting released on Netflix, like something like Marriage Story, going to Netflix,
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to get a better distribution there than a limited film run where they have to run TV spots and all of this stuff versus it just popping up on your screen because Netflix is like, look, we made 5 new things yesterday. And like,
Yep.
you haven't heard of any of these. Do you want to watch them? And, you know, it's just much easier. And so like, this is kind of what's happening is film is becoming like you go to the movies for the big spectacle events, and TV is actually kind of bringing in these more intimate stories, especially because you can like a lot of these stories are either really that insular or there are something that's better told over 10 hours, 12 hours. And so that's another thing that I kind of find interesting. I think we're going to see, I could be completely wrong, but I think cinema is going to become increasingly more spectacle movie because you'll need a reason. Because, like, I don't go to the movies unless it's a big superhero movie. Because, like, I don't want to pay that much money for the seat, for popcorn, to sit there and watch a movie that's going to look just as good on my TV at home. If I wait a couple of months, especially if it's not something that's going to be talked about on Twitter and spoiled for me. But, like, Endgame, Far From Home, like, I can't wait for Black Widow to come out. Like, those are the movies I'm going to go see in theaters because I want the 3D screen and I want the big experience and I want the crowd all cheering at once. The stuff that I can't get at home. This has nothing to do with the Mandalorian.
No, but I think it's a completely relevant conversation because there have been plenty of times when I was watching an episode of The Mandalorian and I was like, I kind of want to see this on a big screen just because there's some big appeal about having a bigger screen. I know that we have like super nice like 4K TVs now, but I don't have a super nice like 4K TV now.
Right.
So I don't like get that experience, but I remember as like some movies are currently just like going straight to like streaming and stuff since we can't be in the movie theaters and there's some stuff that's just getting rescheduled. I was having a conversation with my dad and I was telling him, I was like, things like Dune and Tenet and the No Time to Die, the James Bond movie, I'm like, those I want to see in the theater. Like I don't want those to come straight to TV just because at least one time it just feels big enough that I want to go see the thing. Or not the thing, the theater screen. And so there is this idea that some stuff I feel like just belongs big. And I think that somehow this technology and this fascination with telling really, really good stories on television is sort of inching its way into my belief that there are some things that need to be seen big because if I kept that idea like solely straight, no exceptions, then The Mandalorian would be one of those things that I have to see big.
Right.
And yet I watch it on my tablet and my computer and my regular size TV that's not a 4K.
Right.
And so everything's definitely been changing. And I think it's been changing for a while, especially with big shows like Game of Thrones. But now I think we're all noticing that it's changing. And The Mandalorian is giving us a peek as to saying, yeah, we're showing you why it's changing. We have LED screens everywhere.
Well, and even with Siege of Mandalore, there's a lot of people who really want Siege of Mandalore released as a limited. I would go see it if it was in theaters. And
I would go see it.
And like Mandalorian, is 8 episodes, but they're all around a half an hour. Like you could do a marathon day. Like there's I don't know how national it is, and it's probably not international, but there's a company called Fathom Entertainment that does like special event movies. And like they could do, you know, a Fathom event of The Mandalorian, you know, and you take an intermission after 4 episodes or whatever. But like you could do that, and I think that would be a cool thing to put in theaters where you can see this kind of stuff, but then still have that accessibility. Because there's definitely things where I'm like, I want to be able to see this on a big screen. But I also, I think I've been saying this for a while, and I don't know. I'm excited. Like I'm glad we're still getting movies. I'm so excited for Taika's movie just from the basis that it's Taika. But I also think that Star Wars is going to become stronger in episodic storytelling now that they're done with the Skywalker saga.
I can see that. Because there's just so many chances for offshoots and like nuance and other stories within stories that I can very much see, unless they're going to do like another saga like the Skywalker saga, maybe just like less time in between. But yeah, I do think it's going to be very strong episodically.
Yeah, I think, and like that's where you can kind of take your risk and try different kinds of characters, especially because if
Mm-hmm.
it's not even just because you're expecting a smaller audience anyway, but like the number of
Mm-hmm.
people who probably just watched The Mandalorian because of the hype around it and it's in their house that might not have gone to the theaters
Mm-hmm.
to see it. You can pick up that audience as well. If somebody goes, I don't know if I want to see this Star Wars movie. I don't know who's in it and I don't get it. Versus like, I can stream an episode and see if I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you can watch Tiger King, you can watch The Mandalorian. Is kind of my opinion. Says somebody who refuses to watch Tiger King.
I've never seen Tiger King. I just listen to everyone talk about it.
I have. If you want to hear a soapbox that I will never put on this channel, you can hear my soapbox about reality television and like in sensationalizing real events. But that is not a rant for this channel. But I
No,
won't watch Tiger
I
King.
mean, because I'm wondering, because
Mhm.
there are a lot of people, me included, who would like the Siege of Mandalore to
Yeah.
be in theaters. Which my pitch is they should do the Clone Wars movie, like a double showing of the Clone Wars movie and the Siege of Mandalore
I
back
saw
to
the
back,
Clone Wars
especially for
movie in
those of us who
theaters.
didn't get to see it.
I was.
Yeah. Um, but I was wondering,
Mhm.
would something like The Mandalorian, like imagine it as like just like 2 movies or 3
Mhm.
movies,
Yeah.
would it have worked as like a trilogy in theaters? And that's not a very fair question. So I mean, no answer is really fair. But my first initial thought was no. And I have no idea why I thought that because it
Mhm.
probably could. But I don't know. I feel like it's just one of those things that's like
I think.
perfect for television.
I mean, it was made for television, so I think it works better there.
Hmm.
I think that I think it would have done fine, and I think that as
Hmm.
the movies go forward, like I don't know what Taika's gonna do. He could break every record in the world. I don't know, but like
Hmm.
I think going forward, if we're going to have more offshoot Star Wars films, we have to come to terms with the fact that some Star Wars movies are gonna just do fine. Like that's the big debate with
Yeah.
Solo and everybody acting like Solo was a failure. I'm like, no, Solo did fine. It's just some people
Hmm.
don't think Star Wars should do fine. And so like
Fine.
I think if Mando was released in theaters, it would have done fine. Like I don't think it would have crashed and
Hmm.
burned. Now, you have the power of Baby Yoda, but the question is then would people have gone to theaters for Baby Yoda? Because I
Hmm.
think it's going to be really interesting looking at the streaming numbers for season 2 versus the streaming numbers of season 1, because a lot of that was the
Yeah.
hype of like, what is this meme that keeps showing up on my feed? Um,
Yeah.
which is my son, of course. Um, I'm
It's not just me.
very proud of my son. I'll get like I'll find a new picture of him and I'll just send friends pictures of Baby Yoda and be like, I'm very proud of my son, and they're like, okay.
I expect nothing less
I
from
went
you.
one day at work. I literally walked up to my boss and said, "Do you want to see a picture of my son?" Just to see the look on his face, because he up until that point did not think I had children. And I had not gone on maternity leave, so this was probably a very confusing question. And then I showed him a picture of Baby Yoda, and he does not watch Star Wars, and so he was just like, okay.
I remember I was on Facebook and I posted a photo of me and Kit Harington.
Mm-hmm.
And my aunt does not watch Game of Thrones, so she didn't know who Jon Snow was. And she just commented, she's like, "Hey Gina, who's that there?" And I was like, "Oh, it's Kit Harington, Jon Snow from Game of Thrones." And then later my friend texted me, she was like, "So I saw that exchange on your Facebook." And I was like, "Okay, yeah." And then she goes, she totally thought you were dating him. She was trying to figure out who your boyfriend was. I was like, oh, it's a famous person.
That's amazing.
I was like, I wish, but no.
Don't worry, I'll bring him over for Christmas. That's great. Oh my god.
um, One interesting thing,
Mm-hmm.
speaking of Taika,
Yeah.
because he's oh my goodness, I looked down at my notes and I wrote Gina, and I was like, why did I write my name in my notes? And I did it again. Anyway, that was not the point. The point was, I was thinking about Taika,
Mm-hmm.
who, has directed plenty of films
Yep.
and has directed other television besides The Mandalorian.
Yep.
And we have so many things like The Siege of Mandalore or The Mandalorian where we think, oh, that feels very cinema-esque. I want to see it in, theaters. And there's plenty of movies that when they go to DVD or they play on TNT or whatever channel, we just watch it on TV.
Yep.
So I wonder, especially for directors who have done both TV and movies. Like there has to be a difference in how
Yeah.
you approach it, just because I'm listening. But I wonder, like, is that difference closing in distance, especially for people who've worked on both? And when you work on something like The Mandalorian with this
Yeah.
like super cool, amazing technology that feels cinematic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wonder, like, is that where some of the magic comes from, that you don't really approach a difference anymore or anything
Mm-hmm.
like that? And so that's one of the things I'm most interested in knowing about, especially like the only way I could like see if there's a difference is someone who's only done movies directing Star Wars and someone
Mm-hmm.
like Taika doing Star Wars, if there's any difference. But I just wonder, those are things I think about now that I've watched this documentary series.
That's something I would love to talk to about, because like I know they talked to Taika a little bit about like his past projects, but that was really more about the idea of having resources versus not having resources. It wasn't really like film versus television.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, because TV is
Oh, but
usually. Oh, good.
I was gonna say, even for him, something like indie versus mainstream, because
Yeah,
there has to be a difference there too.
for sure. But like I know TV tends to have a much quicker schedule, because you have to keep, especially back from network days, where you would be making the season as the season's airing.
Mm-hmm.
You would really have to move to get everything done, because like sometimes as a shooting, like sometimes you would spend the same amount of time on a movie that you would spend on a whole season of television. So television tends to be much faster, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's part of why sometimes television didn't always look as good, either because they just didn't have enough time to get the acting rhythm or to do all of the tech stuff. But that's changed just as people have accepted. I mean, it used to be 22-hour long episodes, and now, it's much shorter
Yeah.
seasons that are much more accepted. Um, but yeah, I would assume that there's got to be a difference, and that's where something like the volume is so cool for television, because they
Mm-hmm.
have to shoot things so fast, and you don't always get to keep the locations, and so you like getting that quick turnaround. Is really cool to be able to just go, oh yeah, no, we can just pick that up and um, do that again after we've looked at it and made sure it turned out okay.
Mm-hmm. One thing I wonder is, so you have shows like Game of Thrones who
Mm-hmm.
have the budget and the ability to actually travel like around the
Mm-hmm.
world to all these different very beautiful locations, but
Yep.
you also had the real-time issues of weather and all that.
Yeah.
So I wonder if things like the volume, because I'm pretty sure like HBO could afford to build one.
Yeah.
Um, I wonder if things like that will make that like obsolete, or if it'll be like, oh no, we'll still do that sometimes when we want to, or if we need. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you
Like,
mean. Well, because like there was one
I just.
line in the sorry
Mm-hmm.
there was one line in the documentary, I can't remember who said it, but it was the idea of being able to have a 10-hour sunrise, because like
Oh yeah.
shooting at sunrise or sunset is a nightmare, because that lighting
Mm-hmm.
doesn't last long and it changes so drastically. Like sometimes you only get one take and you have to do it right. And so the idea that you can maintain that lighting and keep it consistent for so long is so good. I don't know that they'll ever really get rid of going places, because I think for some things there is a magic to being there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
especially if, I mean, maybe for fantasy stuff, but like if you're shooting like a James Bond movie, there's something about actually shooting in Italy or in Mexico or in New York or London, that you can't replicate.
Mm-hmm.
And like being able to be in the city streets, I think, especially because like I think the other thing with Mando is there's so few episodes where there's a lot of characters. Like usually it's
Yeah.
3 or 4 people walking around outside, um, where if you're shooting something down a busy street, you know, you're gonna want the extras, you're gonna need the space. So like, I don't know that it'll go obsolete, but again,
Mm-hmm.
it's that idea of you don't need to do it. Like
Yeah.
you can shoot your sunset scenes on a volume, or
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of like make that decision. It might become a thing if it's that cheap, where people use it for pickup shots. Like they go shoot on location and they go, oh, we need to get this, and then you can replicate a short close up in a volume real quick.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I think about the type.
I
I
I'm
Oh, go
talking
ahead.
I'm talking like I know things, and I'm really just talking about tuna.
I mean, I think about the types of directors who you hear, oh, they demanded like 70 like takes or something like that. They're probably like, yeah, let's just go to the volume. Let's do this a bunch of times so you're crying. Versus the directors who are like, you got it on the first try.
Yeah,
Or
it's
just like,
fine.
okay. So it probably all comes down to preference and how you want it to look. I don't know that much about directing, so
Mm-hmm.
anyone who actually does it's probably just like this girl. But I think about
Go get the rest.
um oh my god. But I one of my favorite directors, and once again, I'm gonna probably say something wrong, so everyone feel free to correct me. But I mean, one of my favorite directors is like Quentin Tarantino,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that he he doesn't like doing something like shooting things on digital or something,
Mm-hmm.
like 35 millimeter or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I think there's also going to be some directors who are just like, no, I don't want to use a volume. I like being out there
Yeah.
in the elements. I'm gonna take you to the elements. And so it'll also probably come down to preference and how you want something to look, or at
Yeah.
least personally for you. Like your director's eye will be able to
Yeah.
see it, whether the general audience won't be, because I can't tell what things are shot on
Right.
unless it just looks old.
Well, and I think there's something to the Mandalorian is all in places that don't exist. Right? So if something looks a
Yeah.
little off,
Mm-hmm.
no one knows it looks a little off because it doesn't exist. Where if you're trying to replicate New York City, you know, I don't know if we know how
Mm-hmm.
well. I mean, maybe the volume can do it perfectly, and maybe it can't when it becomes something that like we could recognize, and that uncanny valley comes in.
Yeah. Although I will say that I think that's it's sort of interesting because the first thought I went to was Tatooine.
Yeah.
Because I mean, technically it doesn't exist, but if you watch like A New Hope or Attack of the Clones enough,
Yeah.
you feel like you know
Yep.
what Tatooine is like. And so, but when I watched that episode, I was just like, oh yeah, it's Tatooine. So like they did a good job of replicating
Tatooine.
a fake place.
Yeah. All the sand dunes. But no, that's true too.
What? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's true. Like they were able to get that kind of iconic look of
Hmm.
sort of things.
I don't remember who said it, but someone was talking about, oh, it might have been John Favreau. He
Mm-hmm.
was talking about why sometimes effects don't hold up
Oh yeah.
today because of how things were shot with
Mm-hmm.
like lighting and shadows, etc. And that made me think of when I first started watching Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
People were like, okay, Gina, you may not like the original trilogy because it doesn't look the best. But when I watched it, I was like, I feel like this still,
Yeah.
holds up for me. I mean,
Yeah.
it looks older, but it looks great.
Yeah.
And getting to know these individuals who, not necessarily worked on A New Hope, but like in this
Yeah.
company
Mm-hmm.
probably has the same type of environment and atmosphere. I'm just like, okay, so now it makes sense. If what we're working with and seeing in The Mandalorian is how it was working with A New Hope, just figuring it out, it makes
Yeah.
sense why it looks so good. But I think about all the movies I've watched where I was like Jason and the Argonauts, me and my mom to this day, I'll be like, that's campy. I don't want to watch it. No. And so, I mean, The Mandalorian's probably going to stand up to the test of
Yeah.
time forever.
I
Knock
think
on
so.
wood. Yeah.
Well, some things can just really make it work, and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, it's I don't know, I think too with effects sometimes things just need to look like they belong there. Like it's kind of the
Mm-hmm.
same thing in a story, right? Like you don't always need the story to follow exact physics or exact real world logic, but it needs to keep its own consistent logic. I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes with movies too, as long as it has its look, it holds up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what helps with Star Wars is it's so subtly stylistic, where there's just that element where things don't really look like they look on Earth. And so there's
Mm-hmm.
always that kind of fantasy element. So as things start to look kind of off, you're also okay with it.
Yeah.
Because it's just what it looks. And like even the effects of the originals versus the effects of the prequels versus the effects of the sequels, it all looks like Star Wars, but also you can kind of just see a clip, and not just even from a technology level, but just from how things look, you can tell which era
Mm-hmm.
it's in, which I like. You can see that as good or bad,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think there's something to that as well.
I mean, because I think about when Luke first, ignites a lightsaber in A New
Mm-hmm.
Hope. That looks so fake. It looks
It
awful,
does.
but it looks so great. It's
Right.
still one of like my favorite moments ever. And you can compare it to when Rey ignites a lightsaber
Yep.
in Force Awakens to fight Kylo, and I'm just like, both of those are magical to me. Star Wars, and then they look completely different.
Different. Yep. Well, it's funny to go back and watch because A New Hope, the story of A New Hope is that is a movie that just almost didn't get made. Like,
Yeah.
like it's a miracle that thing got on the screen at all. And then you go to Empire and it's like they had money this time. It's like people actually thought this was a cool idea. And really
Mm-hmm.
step up. That was like sometimes I really wonder what A New Hope would have been like if Lucas had had just a little bit more money and people actually like cared.
Yeah.
But who knows? Who knows? But I don't know.
Then we'd be missing out on some of that. Wow. Not slapped together, because not
Right.
slapped together, but slapped together like it's like when you do this happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
It's like when you spend a whole semester doing a project
Yep.
and you get it back and it's like a B, and then you do a project last minute, like for 3 days, and then you get like the highest grade ever. And you're
Yep.
just like, well, okay, I'll take it.
I don't understand. Oh man. And the fun part for me, I know so many people hate the special editions, but I've just reached this point where I think they're hilarious to just see the changes each time. And so like yesterday I watched A New Hope and I was like, I'm watching it on Disney Plus because I want McClunky. Like my Blu-ray doesn't have McClunky and I want McClunky.
Uh-huh.
Does it feel awkward and out of place and is it absolutely terrible? Yes. But am I going to watch it exclusively with McClunky now? Yes. I will
Yeah.
not accept any McClunky-less version of A New Hope. McClunky.
Oh my gosh. I mean, but I also think that's one of the things that makes fandom fun. It's
Yeah.
like as frustrating it can be whenever people start having legitimate arguments
Yeah.
about which one is better. Not that you can't have an opinion, but
Right.
like it's not serious. But like there's just a fun about, which one do you like better? Which one do you watch all the time? I'm
Yeah.
just too lazy to put in my DVD. So
That's a big mood. I had to watch Solo on Blu-ray because it's not on Disney Plus yet, and it was such a first world problem. I was so upset.
Wait, is it like on Netflix or
No,
something? Why is it on Disney Plus?
it was still on Netflix, but I don't think I realized that until later because I thought it just
Mm.
wasn't anywhere. Because since I got Disney Plus, I haven't opened Netflix. So because like I moved to Netflix off my parents, so it's not one that I'm like constantly thinking of being there.
Yeah.
And so then I didn't think to check Netflix.
Somewhere Bob Iger is really, really happy with you. He's just like, yeah, like
He's got the opposite
forget
of a
that.
rash. He's just like, oh, I feel really good for some reason. I don't. It's like I have 3 less gray hairs, and I don't know why. Hey,
But
there's
yeah,
Sky Nobi.
technology.
Welcome. Good to see you.
Hello. We haven't talked about technology in maybe 10 minutes as pertains to the Mandalorian.
Like Cal said a while back after he said like we tend to just talk instead of talking on topic. He's like, I realize this. It gives me some semblance of a social life. I'm like, yeah, good fun.
Welcome to the conversation. I feel that.
He's like, I make the thumbnail. I say there's a topic, but like, who knows what we'll actually talk about.
I actually feel like today's episode has been the most on topic out of every single one. And it's probably because I learned stuff today. Is that a bad thing? Is that a bad?
I mean, maybe about the other episodes. I don't know.
No, they've been great too. Oh my gosh.
Just chatting away. No, it's been
Yeah.
good. It's been good. So is that I looked at my notes, and my notes for this one were literally just Jon Favreau makes sense, Dave Filoni makes sense, director show. I didn't really have like notes, but again, it was because it was like vectors. Like that is just how I felt. I was like, yes, vector.
No, yeah. I did not take many notes, and that's because like some of the time I was like, what does this mean? And some of the time I was like, this is really pretty. I just want to stare at it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Actually, I kept thinking about Galaxy's Edge and like how they do the rides there. So like
Mm-hmm.
for those who might not know, there's the two rides at Galaxy's Edge: Smuggler's Run, which is the Millennium Falcon, and then Rise of the Resistance. And both of them have people are really weird about spoilers for the ride, so I won't get too spoilery if you're worried about it. But both of them have shots where you can see like the planet of Batu from high up in the atmosphere. And when you ride the ride, if you're on the Falcon, so like on the Falcon you take off and you land. And so like when you ride the ride, if you are riding it during the day, it's sunny, and if you're riding the ride at night, it's Batu at night. Like the time that is reflected in the digital space matches the time of day outside. So if you walked into the ride in the daylight, you're going to be in the ride in daylight, unless you were in line for 3 hours, which is really possible, in which case you might walk in daylight and then ride the ride at night. But it like that's another kind of like real time change, and like they have these really cool digital environments, and like on the Falcon, you're piloting Falcon, and so it has to do that same thing of like generating space. So I kind of wonder how much of Galaxy's Edge isn't actually a similar technology, but I don't actually
Mm-hmm.
know.
I never take spoilers for Rise of the Resistance because I want to ride it
Mm-hmm.
sometime, and I feel in my soul that it's going to be my favorite ride ever.
It's
I'm
good.
not really a roller coaster person, but I am a dark ride person.
Right.
So currently, my favorite ride is the Transformers one in Universal Studios and Hogwarts one in Harry Potter World, and both of those are dark rides. And I was super, super interested
Mm-hmm.
because the one I did the Hogwarts one,
Mm-hmm.
we were like, okay, so I don't know a lot about Harry Potter. There's spiders in one. I'm sorry if you guys don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were on the ride, and they were like, spell. And then we went through the portal, and we're in Harry Potter. I'm so sorry. Someone's like, she went and she doesn't even get it. I
there's
became
the
like a
there's the
fan.
other rash. Oh my gosh.
It was super fun. I enjoyed it.
Uh,
Um,
so
but oh, go ahead.
I was just say Cal.
Oh, I was
Cal said something in the chat. You can post something in. I'm pretty sure Gina, you are not looking at the chat, correct? You're going off of what I say.
no.
Okay, no. Cal wants to say a mini
Oh
spoiler.
yeah.
Yeah, you can post a mini
Oh,
spoiler in the chat because Gina
uh-huh.
is not reading the chat, and then
I can't see the chat. No.
so you're fine. I just won't read it out loud, and then anybody in the chat who's worried about it, just close your eyes. Okay, continue.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I only bring it up because we were riding it at some point, and me and my sisters were like faced up like this,
Mm-hmm.
and then the ride stopped. And so we were like that for maybe a good 10 minutes, maybe. I don't know. It
Yeah.
was a while ago. But the lights came on because they had to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were able to see the practical parts of the rides
Yeah.
and everything. And we were just looking around the track, like talking to people and stuff. And then they gave us a warning that the ride was going to start back up. And then because it broke down on us, they were like, do you want to go again? We skipped the line. And we were like, yes. And so the second time we went through, I forgot all about all the fancy behind the like scenes stuff I saw. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, Hogwarts. And it felt real. And so this idea that it's also practical stuff, but
Yeah.
also like
Digital
these
shit.
giant
Yeah.
screens and stuff, and it still felt real, even though I had seen some of the practical stuff and
Yeah.
whatnot. Like I thought a Dementor was really sucking out my soul, and I didn't know what a Dementor was.
I love
And
that.
so I just know that when I go to Galaxy's Edge eventually,
Oh,
that this ride is gonna
love
be
it.
the
You'll love
best thing in the world.
Hey
But
Dale,
yeah,
welcome.
it all feels
I'll say that this
um,
has nothing to do with the ride itself, but like when I went on Rise of the Resistance. It was new-ish. It wasn't brand spanking new, but it had been open like a month or two, and so they're still working out some of the bugs. And the group I was in, we hit a certain point in the ride, and the person next to me looked over and said, "This is where we were when it broke last time." And I was like, "Why would you share that with the group? Why is this a thing?" Like, I just stared. I didn't say anything, but I just stared at her like, this was not share time. This was not share time.
Oh my god.
And so then now I went from enjoying the ride to, is it gonna break again?
Well, think of it. If it breaks again, you get to go second time.
So there you go. But no, it's good. I will say, as somebody, because we expressed my motion sensitivity earlier in the stream, I was worried about rides because I don't do a lot of rides because I'm motion sensitive. So to anybody out there who is, as somebody who, like I said, I get nauseous and I ride the back seat of the car, there's only one part of the ride where I felt kind of sick, and it's towards the end. And I just had to close my eyes for a hot second, and I was fine. So, like, I got through, like, 90% of the ride without it being a problem. So, it was, but it was still fun, and it was still thrilling. It just wasn't nauseating. But, like, I might react to motion differently than other people. 2Med2, Star Wars Network. Hey, how are you doing? Good to see you. So, everyone's showing up, like, here at the end. And I always feel bad when people show up at the end. You know, I'm like, should I just talk about nothing for, like, 5 more minutes to make, like, their arrival of the stream? I feel like I've done that so many times where I've, like, been streaming a game, and I'm like, well, I'm about to, oh, you just showed up. Okay, well, I'll play 20 more minutes. And then the stream just becomes, like, 5 hours long, and my parents think I'm dead. And I'm like, no, I feel bad when someone shows up, and I'm like, I have to entertain you. You came. Like, if you're gonna click like, I have to, like, do something for you.
Something.
Yes, this episode was rad. You are correct. And we spent most of this time. It's so dope. It's a lot of dope tuna.
Oh my goodness.
So much dope tuna. You and I should just start a segment called Dope Tuna. We're like, why is it called Dope Tuna? I'm like,
never explain the origin. Just, you have to find
it's out there somewhere. If you're a real fan, you'll find it.
It's so funny because, like, everyone, I'm the second youngest on Unmistakably Star Wars.
Yeah.
I'm like a 90s, like, baby. But I like to say that the 90s didn't end until, like, 2006, so I still feel like I experienced a significant portion of the 90s. But I'll say things that I guess are, like, 90s jargon or 90s slang, and then everyone's just like, who are you? And I'm like an old man that talks like she's in the 90s. That's who I am.
I mean, I get it. I'm a true 90s child, and that I was born in 90. Like, in the year 90.
Legit 90s kid. I'm just
legit 90s kid.
I got 4 years of the 90s, and I didn't have a memory for any of it.
I feel like true 90s kids, though, are actually low-key born in, like, 85, because they're the only ones that would have, like, any kind of reasonable memory of most of the 90s. Because, like, really, I was there for most of it, but I don't really remember much before, like, 96. So, you know.
Makes sense. Yesterday, I was watching a music video, and it started with someone, like, pressing play on their MP3 player. I was like, oh, I didn't realize this music video was that old. And that's not even, I feel like, old, but no, here we are.
Here we are. It's fun.
I like to tell my parents, actually I tell anyone who will listen to me, that technology is progressing far too fast. I feel like, because I remember cassette tapes and VHSs, and so I feel like we should still be on CDs and DVDs. Maybe we can be moving into Blu-ray, but I feel like streaming and this 4K TV things, I should be like when I have kids.
Right.
So I feel like technology is moving too fast. We shouldn't be on streaming yet, but I'm happy we have it.
Yep.
But we shouldn't have it.
No, I understand. I feel like the next wave is really going to be when you just, like, plug a USB into your brain. And we're just going to all walk around. We're all going to look like Zabraks, and we're just going to have, like, a series of USB horns around our head. and then you'll be able to buy the
And then
special Darth Maul edition of your
and then
USB plugins.
and it's gonna turn out that ILM had something to do with it, and they secretly were working on it like the whole time because they're great at innovating everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
remember Google Glass, that thing that lasted for like a week?
Tess, what I don't know what happened.
I'm presuming it just
know.
really didn't work, but it was the idea that Google was going to make glasses and totally not steal everything you were looking at when they did it.
Yeah, okay, so here's where I sound like a conspiracy person with a tinfoil hat, but I don't want Google that close to my brain.
No.
Like, they already know too much about me. I
no.
feel
Well,
like.
like, people are always so funny. They're like, I always turn location services off on my phone. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. I'm glad you feel confident that flipping that little animated button on your phone means that they're not tracking you. I'm like, I just leave that crap on. There's something in turn the services somewhere where they're like, even if you turn it off, we're still allowed to track you. So I'm like, they know where you are.
I would not be surprised if there was like
that
FBI person half on this chat already.
The buttons on here don't exist. They're just there. They're like little cartoon buttons to make you feel good about yourself, but there's no real buttons on this thing. You didn't turn anything off.
You all have secretly been listening to the first segment of Dope Tuna, which is really a conspiracy show. Aliens are real.
We should just start a podcast called Dope Tuna. That's just like
yes.
And explain nothing. No context. We don't even say hello. There's no like 2 minutes of intro music and 5 minutes of outro music. You just start.
No.
We have already started talking. You're coming in mid-conversation. We explain nothing, no context, and then you leave with no resolution to what we were talking about. It was just an hour somewhere in the day of what we were talking about. It would be perfect. Skynobi wants to know if you have talked about the rumors about Sheriff Cobb. We have not. Are you following that at all? Okay. So
not at all.
Are you familiar with the Aftermath books at all? By Chuck Wendig?
Not enough to know what we're talking about.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. It's not even really from those, but they're from the interludes. So like the Aftermath books, the actual like I like the Aftermath trilogy. Some people don't. I really do. But like the best part of the Aftermath trilogy are these interludes where like every couple of chapters they would just do this random side short story about some other really random crap that was happening somewhere in the galaxy. And there's a series of interludes about this guy named Cobb. And Cobb is on Tatooine, and like in the first one, he ends up buying this armor, and it's not really named as Boba Fett's armor, but it's armor that's described as being like Mandalorian armor that's burned with acid. So the idea is that it was harvested out of the Sarlacc pit where Boba fell. Because in Legends, Boba survives. In current canon, Boba didn't. But I mean, there's a lot of characters that didn't survive, so who knows? But Timothy Olyphant is rumored to be in season 2 of Mandalorian. But everyone's rumored to be in season 2 of The Mandalorian. So it's, who knows? But he's one of the 2,000 people currently confirmed to be in the second season of The Mandalorian. And the rumors are he is going to be wearing Boba Fett's armor. But they haven't said that he's playing Boba Fett. Which is also interesting because they've also said Tamara Morrison's going to be in it. And he would be more likely to play Boba Fett. So now people are wondering if Oliphant's going to be playing this Cobb character who acquired Boba Fett's armor, and if he will be the person that went up to Fennec, who's totally not dead, at the end of her episode. Because the spur sound that character makes is the same sound as Boba Fett's armor.
I now accept this and want it to be true due to my stance on Boba Fett, whom I do not dislike, but do not want in this show.
That's right.
So, this is now my new favorite theory. Thank you!
So it'd be a way to bring in the iconic armor, but it still wouldn't be Boba Fett. I would love it because I would love anything that is a deep dive at books. They're saying in the chat, watch out, next time I go on Amazon, they're going to be trying to sell me Google glasses. I think you're probably right. But this is my other thing. The reason why anytime Aftermath gets referenced that I get really excited about is this is part of. Actually, I know Cal will be into this because Cal randomly called Ray Palpatine in like 2015. So I don't know.
Nice.
He can see the future. I don't understand it. But like in the Aftermath books, Jakku is like super 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 important, and Palpatine has an observatory on Jakku. And it was really weird because going into The Force Awakens and just barely coming out of Force Awakens before they started shifting into Last Jedi mode, Jakku was in like everything. It's in Lost Stars, it was in the Aftermath trilogy. They're making all this big deal. The Battlefront games were talking about how Palpatine had these like observatories everywhere. And then you go to Last Jedi, and then like no one cares about Jakku anymore. And then suddenly we go back to Rise of Skywalker under J.J. Abrams, and it's like, Palpatine and Rey's a Palpatine, and it, like, my theory that I can't prove and we may never know is that JJ may have actually always intended Rey to be a Palpatine, and that's why Jakku was such a big deal in the extended stuff that was coming out around. And then when Ryan was like, actually I'm going in this direction, they were like, okay, well we don't need to keep Jakku being important anymore. And so for me, that whole tangent was just like anything that's making the Aftermath books more relevant just fuels my fire that they were actually always intended. Because it's kind of weird because like you have the Aftermath books and then like very little from them has been referenced in other stuff. And so now I'm like, I'd love it if it's getting referenced more because I actually really like this trilogy and it would prove that they were actually supposed to be about more back in the day. Back in 2015 and 16 when the books were coming out.
I'm super inclined to believe you're right, seeing as you were like, oh, Ben's probably going to die. And I was like, what? They all die in Rogue One? So I'm not good at guessing this stuff, like, ever at all. But that actually is one of my favorite things about Star Wars that I didn't realize is one of my favorite things about Star Wars is that, like, throwaway lines can just be throwaway lines, or they can just be turned into this whole, like, huge thing, like a whole movie or, like, a whole book or something. And I'm just like, I dig that.
We're going to take this one hyper-fixated detail and make a whole thing about it. Just, I mean, even, like, I don't even know. Well, like you said, with Rogue One, it's just literally a line from the New Hope.
And we got a whole movie.
Cal says Rey's parents taking her to Jakku could be the Hobbit strategy of closer we are to danger, the further we are from harm. Or just, I mean, hiding Luke Skywalker on Tatooine, which... Obi-Wan, I have so many questions about your... so many questions. And then Cal says Clone Wars were originally a throwaway line, which is true.
It's true. It's true.
You fought in the Clone Wars? And everyone's like, Clone Wars? What the heck is that Clone Wars?
Now we're all crying years later about the Clone Wars.
So sad. So many feels. But anyway, I hope season 2 of Mandalorian is like at least 16 episodes to fit in all these people that are apparently going to be in it.
Yeah, unless everyone's just like a real quick cameo and they show up like other places. But
or they're all in a group.
I have faith.
A giant ensemble episode. There's actually there's a portal scene. And they all just show up. They go to the planet of Yodas, and the planet of Yodas combine their powers, and they open up like a force time and just summon in all of these other characters to defend the planet of Yodas.
This hurts me.
It hurts you. I'm the one who hates Endgame.
I cry at the portal scene like every single time, okay? It's a really good scene. I'll tell you, I like Endgame, but I don't watch it much, but I'll still watch the portal scene.
That's fair. There are parts.
Also, I want you to... Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I will say there are parts of Endgame I like. Parts.
Sure. I was gonna say, I I want you to know every single time I try to picture the planet of Yodas, what's the planet they go to in Thor Ragnarok with the Grandmaster? I don't remember the name, but that's what I'm picturing.
I just picture Dagobah.
Well, it tells you something about me as a Star Wars fan that I do not. Oh, can you imagine like a Yoda that acts like the Grand Master, just like a
Yes.
Jeff Goldblum
A
Yoda?
Jeff Goldblum Yoda. Yes, please. That sounds amazing.
He already has a show with Disney Plus. He's got a connection. Let's just go.
The best part is they probably wouldn't even tell him that he's playing a Yoda. They would just be like, just talk, and then they'll animate it later.
Oh, now I want this. Now I want this to happen.
Disney Plus just needs to talk to us because we keep coming up with all the good ideas.
You have really great ideas.
We have great ideas, and I'm really surprised that even after Bob Iger totally heard how I don't even look at Netflix anymore since I got Disney Plus, which I exclusively watch Star Wars on, and I don't even use it for anything else. I have Disney Plus because I'm too lazy to put in my Blu-rays. That's why I have Disney Plus. And even with that, he still won't call me to hear my TV show ideas.
Honestly, rude. How rude.
Cal says there's the Taika connection with Jeff Goldblum too.
So basically, this is a real idea, and it's happening. That's all I'm hearing.
Do you understand that if Taika does the Planet of Yoda's movie?
You guys, this is real for Jazz.
This is real for me.
She's been in this fight since she was 6 years old.
I feel like I'm almost on the verge of tears imagining it.
I really want this to happen. Okay, everyone, we've been tweeting make Solo 2 happen. We want that, but let's get a hashtag going for the Planet of Yodas.
I'm gonna tweet Taika after the stream and be like, Taika, hashtag Planet of Yodas? Question mark.
I'm gonna retweet that tweet.
Just saying.
This was a really good stream. Each week tops the other week. Also, congrats to us for doing it Friday.
Yeah, like right. We made it work. So we'll try for Friday again next week, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah, but we've been going like 90 minutes, so we'll let you guys go free. We gave the obligatory couple of minutes to the people who came in at the end, so I feel better. I feel like I might have earned the like that they may or may not give me.
And you also got like golden content. It wasn't like just throwaway stuff. That was all gold.
It was everything in this stream was gold. It was so many good moments. Mm-hmm. And also the inaugural episode of Dope Tuna.
I want to know what percentage of this stream was actually about the Mandalorian.
I'll keep like a timer next time and be like, how much time are we actually on topic? Sky Nobi's really trying. We need Sky Nobi here because he keeps asking the relevant questions. The rumors about Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, and Rex. So again, because there's 2,000 people appearing in The Mandalorian. But there's a lot of people think Tamara Morrison is not going to be playing Boba Fett. He's going to be playing Rex to complement the Rosario Dawson rumors that she's playing Ahsoka. And I'm way more interested in Rex being in the show than I am Boba Fett. But Bo-Katan, especially Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan, please. Actually, I really want Bo-Katan in the Kenobi show because I think it would be really cool for them to connect. And, like, she would be somebody cool to, like, visit him on Tatooine. You could have some, like, really good talks and, like, they could come to terms with Satine and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Why not both? Both.
We'll see what happens. I mean, she could float. She could really fit in all three of the shows we have right now. She could fit in Cassian.
This is true. Also, if they can have Ahsoka float through shows, then it makes sense. They can have other people float through shows, and it makes sense.
It's true. Through portals made by the Planet of Yodas. Kathleen, I'm here anytime you need ideas. I'm available.
We need to set up another brunch with Dave.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Okay. Dave, my phone's upside down. Dave, need brunch. Great ideas.
Oh my goodness! And at brunch, I'm just gonna serve Jon Favreau a can of tuna.
How funny would it be if you and I just started tweeting Dave all the time? Be like, Dave, brunch? Question mark. And then the few times he actually checks his phone, like, what's this?
Wait, wait. I'm gonna tweet at this man.
Like, brunch? Question
mark. Brunch question. Oh, I've laughed far too hard. Thank you for this.
I needed this really badly. I was like, I don't know that I'm gonna have anything coherent to say, and then I was like, that's fine, because
Do we?
No. No, this is good.
Okay, I really tweeted it. I was
Oh
like,
my
brunch
God.
question mark.
I will do this. I will do this too. Oh, that's so good. He'll be like, what the heck? Let's see here.
Oh my God.
Where's David brunch?
Oh my gosh. If he actually replied, I would cry so much.
There we go. I replied. we just need to start constantly tweeting out inside jokes from these streams. And then
yes.
People will be like, what are these tweets? I'm like, well, if you were watching the streams, you would understand.
This is great.
All right, thanks, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I'll be doing something at some point in time. I promise. As soon as I'm not completely stressed out by work every week, I'll do more than this. But right now, I think this is enough. This is good.
Yay!
Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.